Hello, and welcome back. This is our third video on our series where we're going to start getting into the mid-game strategies. So what does mid-game mean? For me personally, it means when I start seeing heavy tanks come on the field, I start seeing medium to heavy tanks, maybe anti-tank weaponry that's heavier, larger artillery, things like that. So when your AI you're taking on starts throwing some really crazy crap at you, you're probably approaching your mid-game. So I've seen it happen as early as like battle number 9, where all of a sudden there's heavy artillery coming onto the field, or there is T-34s or something really weird that I hadn't seen before starting to show up. Maybe not in mass, but one of them's enough to be a problem. So in order to keep up with the AI, it's going to be very important for you to use your research wisely. So I had talked about in my previous videos, one of the things you'll always be looking at is advancing through your call stages and also your defenses. So I already have medium defenses flushed out. I'm probably approaching the time, or I need to very soon invest in doing large defenses in call-in stage 5. When you're able to start having an excess of 1,000 plus reinforcements and your ammo is pretty balanced, and you're able to field heavy and medium tanks without much of a problem, you're good to go to start moving that stuff forward. So let me just show you kind of where I'm at. Again, it doesn't matter if you're playing Germans, doesn't matter if you're playing Soviets. This is going to be pretty much across the board here. So as you can tell in the upper tier of my research tree, I got call-in stage 4, medium defenses, and I'm kind of ready to move on to the next stages there. I haven't messed with this, and to be honest, against AI, I mean, this AT detachment you get for free in the beginning is great, but it's really garbage late game. Like even in the Panzerschreck squads, and I haven't found a good use for this stuff at all, so I don't even bother. I did unlock my supply truck. I will eventually need fuel. We'll talk about that when we go down the tree a little bit further. Field engineers are great for building tank trenches. These are really good for defensive battles to kind of keep your tanks a little bit extra protected. Keep in mind, like in our defensive video, sometimes it doesn't go as planned. You may set up a bunch of tank trenches to kind of dig in your tanks, and they come from a totally different flank. So something to keep in mind. And in my late games, honestly, Teal, I'll just kind of mention, I don't really mess too much with this. I kind of stick with the field engineer, and maybe you can later go on for the truck with the engineer, I guess, if you wanted. That's up to you. So infantry-wise, what I say, early to mid-game, pioneer squads will be fine. I'm still there. I'm not necessarily ready. I think maybe a couple more battles I'll advance up and maybe go for Brandenburger squads, or maybe start heading towards Fallschirmjäger. I kind of view Fallschirmjäger as the late game, when you have a lot of excess research points, you've kind of gotten the real key things you want, you can work on that. So, machine guns and mortars, meh. Not going to mess with that too much, not going to bother. I do bring machine guns with me on defensive battles, but don't bother with offensive. I am lacking here, and this is a problem. In fact, this is an offensive battle I'm about to do. I need to make sure that I invest in flak guns for the next defensive battle. I've never seen AI call in a plane in an offensive battle, just to warn you. It's usually in the defensive ones, and I just had a defensive battle where they called it in, and it hurt. They blew up 2 of my tanks. They got lucky. So something that you need to notate for your future defensive battles is going to be flak. Especially mid-game, you need to bring something that's anti-air. At least probably 1 to 2 pieces. And I would probably say you could sub out a machine gun for some of the lower tier flak guns, because they're pretty good at anti-air, or anti-infantry. As far as anti-tank guns go, I got the Pak 38. To be honest, I'll probably never unlock the 40. I'm not going to bother. I'll just get an anti-tank platform, like a Panzerjäger or something like that, or a Marauder, something like that for mid-game. Artillery, little lacking. I should have probably unlocked the 15 CM, but the 10's been working fine for me, so for now, I need to work on that. That's something you'll need to keep an eye on mid-game. You want to make sure you go for that gun German side. Now let me make a notation for the Soviet side. There's different guns to choose from, obviously, there, artillery pieces. Most of them are fantastic. There's maybe 1 or 2, and I can't remember off the top of my head which ones they are. I think it's the really super, super heavy ones that have the tank treads. They fire too slow. Their ammo's too expensive. It's very similar to the 20 CM gun for the Germans. It's just not really worth it. So you want to get up to that point, and unless your play style, you like to bring a bunch of heavy guns, maybe you can go for it, but it's not very effective, and you need a ton of trucks then. Ton of supply trucks to keep up with it, and your ammo will just drain super fast too. So I'm not bothering with the German side rocket artillery. Again, in my previous videos, I've mentioned that, you know, people rant and rave about rocket artillery. It's okay. You know, I actually find the Soviet side's a little bit better with the trucks, but still, I don't know. It's not as accurate. I can keep these guns pointed pretty accurately, pounding a position, compared to firing off rockets and waiting. It's a while. I want to say it's like 3 to 5 minutes just to reload those things. Who's got time for that? Like, you'll just be in a battle forever waiting. And by the time you reload, the enemy called in a call sign to reinforce that point anyways. This truck, by this point, is pretty much going to be useless. When you hit mid-game, it's going to get knocked out really easy by both infantry and tanks. And then, of course, I'm going to start getting down here. So, I didn't mess with any of this stuff. You can if you want. I find that it's not really worth it, because if you're getting to this point, you're getting close to mid-game anyways. These are not going to be effective tools in mid-game. So I went down the tank tree, have the Tiger tank unlocked. I just unlocked it since the last battle. So for Soviets, it's going to be something similar. You want your KV tanks or something like that. I will say a special note for the Soviets, T-34 tanks are fantastic. They'll carry you to late game, especially when you go all the way through the tree and get to the T-34, I think it's the 85. That is a just fantastic tank. Fantastic. Super, super good. In fact, I'll laugh and say that my experience with the IS-2 tanks, which are the super heavies that the Soviets get, they're paper thin, I feel like. I mean, a mortar shell will get a lucky shot off it and they explode. My experience with them compared to the Tiger tank and the Koenigsegger is that the German tanks can take way more punishment and be okay, whereas a lucky shot will instantly destroy an IS-2 with no effort whatsoever. Not to say you don't want to probably bring them, but just be aware of that. They're not that great in comparison to the German counterparts. So now that we're in mid-game, I kind of view the Koenigsegger and the Ferdinand as your late-game beasts, and the Sturmtiger as well. These are great to bring along. We're not going to talk too much about that because, again, that's a late-game thing. But you're going to want to probably flush out your Tiger, your second version of your Tiger. Eventually try working towards your Koenigsegger. You can do the Panthers as well. They are a really good tank, but to be brutally honest with you, the cost difference between these two, it's like 30 for this and 34 for that. Why would you not bring a Tiger? It's way more heavier armored, better gun, better tank all around. It is slower, but that's something to mention. Speaking of other things to mention, I talked about the fuel truck a little bit up above. So when you start unlocking your heavy tanks, mid-game strategy is I recommend bringing probably one fuel truck with you if you can. You can have it part of the call sign that your tanks are in. You don't always need it. I've only needed it probably out of 10 times once. But every so often you're going to get into these battles where you'll capture the 3 and 4 point battles where you finally start expanding out beyond your 2. And you capture 3 of the points and you've been playing for 40 minutes and you have to go for the 4th point. These tanks chew up a ton of fuel. The last thing you want is for your tanks to run out of fuel and they can't do anything. And you have no fuel to bring them up, so they're a turret sitting there doing nothing. It becomes a defensive weapon, useless. So something to kind of mention, keep an eye on fuel, especially with the Koenigsegger. That thing just drinks it. Again, 1 out of 10 times I've needed it, but man, it saved me when I needed it. So I want to show you my call signs to kind of see what has changed from we'll say early game to mid game. So again, I just entered mid game. This is fresh. I'd say that probably the last battle was kind of the defining factor. Actually, I'm wrong. 9th battle was kind of defining for that. So day number 9. So I still got my first call-in sign is going to be Pioneer squads, right? My infantry. My second one, I usually always do this, is going to be my medic. I always bring usually 2 guns if I can, supply trucks, and an engineer. The one after that, depending on if you're offensive and defensive, to what you're doing in the battle, I am going to bring this with me on this battle. It's probably going to get knocked out. It's the last one I have. I really don't care. But I have a Tiger tank and then a Panzer V, the furthest one that is you can get before you move down the tree. So it's a little bit heavier armored. And then my last call sign is another infantry squad, another Panzer V, another Tiger. I'm not going to call this in probably till much later in my offensive battle. Obviously, I won't be able to, and this is where you get to see the action points take effect, where suddenly you can't call in all the call signs you have. You're going to have to wait. So I already selected my battle, which now the thing you're going to be really paying attention to is kind of what we talked about in our first and second video. Ammo, manpower, it's going to be key. So I chose a battle purposely that gives a good mix of both. These other two were just ammo. So, you know, what I'll do is my first priority is research point battles if I have enough ammo and manpower. So I'll try to see if those are available. I always go for those because the extra bonus helps expand out your tree really fast. If not, I'm going to go for this one where you have a solid mix of both. And if I can't really have that option, I'll go for maybe an ammo battle, just so you know. You want to make sure you keep your ammo up and your manpower up, because nothing is worse than, like I've mentioned in previous videos, where you end up getting into a battle, finish up, resupply everything, turn around, 40% of your troops don't have any ammo. And you literally are going to have to go into the next battle like that. Not fun. So let's get started. Let's do it. Let's just jump right into this battle here. Ironically, this map was the defensive battle I had where I got bombed and lost 2 tanks. So I got a little trauma here thinking about this map. It kind of bothers me a bit. But another determining factor that might flag your perception that you're in mid game is you go from 2 to 3 points, and that it doesn't necessarily always be the defining factor, but I've seen that also kind of that should notate to you like, hey, something's changing here. If the enemy hasn't started already bringing in heavier stuff, which by then they probably will. I mean, I might be wrong. I think this one might be I might still be in the 2 capture point battle. We'll find out. So let's take a look here and see what we got. So I got 3 points mid-game. A good late-game determining factor, you probably guessed it, is 4 points. I don't think the game goes beyond 4 capture points, but it's something to keep an eye on. So you'll see I have 122 action points tonight. There's no way I can call in all these things, but I always recommend the first thing you call in is going to be your artillery. So your call sign with artillery, because you're going to want to start bombarding positions right away. Next, you can let it sit for a little bit and save up for maybe your third or call sign, whatever you have it set up for, or maybe just have infantry come in. While I wait for that, we're going to soften up these positions. So I'm going to have my artillery targeting machine gun nests and things like that right off the bat. So you see the difference already too in mid-game. The enemy is using the bigger defenses. They're using medium defenses as well. Medium defenses give you usually a machine gun nest, 1 or 2 of those, and a couple different options. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. And that's another great way to tell, all right, I'm entering mid-game territory here. So I'm going to go ahead and start bombarding the rest of these positions here. I always highly recommend that you bring artillery, and I recommend that you soften up positions before you send your troops in. Don't just send troops in. It's not going to go well for you. You're probably going to have them get wiped out pretty quickly, especially if they have medium or large defenses. They have 2 machine gun nests, which devastate infantry. There's going to be a bunch of infantry with anti-tank weaponry hanging around too. That being anti-tank rifles or possibly cancer tracks and stuff. So you want to soften positions up before you go all gung-ho in there. So let's start talking a little bit about some of the more advanced things you're going to run into, or mechanics you might start using by this point. So we talked about the E button. We talked about clicking on a tank, a person, artillery. You can press E, you can take direct control. So I can fire this turn off and control it. I press T, I can zoom in using the mouse and almost scope it up like you're playing a first-person shooter game. For tanks, it's useful at times. Infantry, I think I've said this in the previous video, not worth really doing. There's really no advantage to doing it that I've found. Up to you though. You want to do it, you think it's cool, totally your call. So I'm going to actually move my artillery up a little bit, and I'm going to also move my tanks up just a smidge to see if I can get any kind of infantry exposed out in the open. So we're going to just drop our guns. Again, keep your supply trucks close. So they're supplying your artillery, and we're going to see what other groups of infantry we can smash with these guns. So when using artillery, some advanced tactics to start looking at is going to be, instead of clicking on units to attack directly, bombard the ground. So do an attack round move instead of doing a direct attack. Look for groups of infantry. Look for them all clumped together because AI does an amazing job of doing this. Or if they're in buildings, you're going to want to hit those targets and get them out. So for example right here, my tiger's been blowing this position up for a bit. There's a cluster of infantry kind of hanging out over here. I'm going to have my artillery just get to work. And you saw I did attack round. Just have it bombard that position. As your infantry, or I'm sorry, your artillery gets better, and this is something that I should have probably talked about sooner. I did mention briefly that your troops will start getting better and see, well, your guns, your artillery pieces that are in the back that should never get hurt or damaged, they become pretty heavy veterans later on in your game. The higher veterancy they have, the more efficient they're going to fire or work. So here's that glitch I talked about. I told it to attack. Guess what? Nothing's happening. So we're going to have to see what the heck's going on there. Let's see if I can get it to fire here. There. Cool. So I just got 3 infantry with that. Pretty good trade-off. Let's see where the rest of the infantry's hanging out in the same area. So we'll just keep bombarding that position. So I like to typically, a strategy I like to use is take my tanks, not infantry, and slowly move them up into clearing out positions, especially towns. Urban warfare is a huge pain in the ass in this game, so you just got to be really careful. If you get caught out in the open with a tank and they have an anti-tank gun hanging around or something that you didn't see come in, you could be in trouble. Infantry can get right close to your tanks and hit the flamethrower. There's all kinds of weird stuff that'll happen. So love the sound of the tiger. When the tiger under fire, it's just, yeah, super smooth sounding. Okay, so we're going to move our artillery bombardment a little bit further off to the side here to see if we can clear out these trees. One thing to note with the AI's medium and large defenses, as well as yours, there's never going to be anti-tank guns coming in. As in, they don't automatically give you that weaponry. They give you infantry with Panzerschrecks maybe, or anti-tank rifles, but if there's an anti-tank gun on a position, that's because a call sign probably came in that you didn't catch. So as we're entering mid-game, we have this longer range artillery. We're going to want to keep an eye on the map coming in. We want to stop tank guns from coming in close or anything weird. Speaking of weird, 4 machine guns strapped to a truck. I don't even know what to make of that. So, not a huge threat to our tanks, obviously, but if we had infantry, we would probably be in a world of pain. Alright, so again, our artillery is just taking a break. Since it's not going to really, I'm just going to move the artillery screen up and start hitting the position ahead of this. While my tanks continue to clear out what remains of the enemy in this area. Bring another call sign. I have another tiger, which I'm going to actually bring in and move up to the line as well. This strategy seems to work really well. Just again, be careful of the infantry hanging out in a building that can easily pick out your tanks and hit them with a grenade or something. There's nothing that will piss you off more than losing a tiger to a guy with a flamethrower. Yes, it can happen. In fact, that's one of the nice things about your Pioneer squads is the guys with flamethrowers are actually quite effective against tanks. If they keep that thing just locked on and knocking away at a tank, there's a good chance they're going to knock that tank out. We're going to move these guys up. Up to here's what I'm talking about. And they're killing my crew. I mean, you gotta be careful. I wasn't paying attention, and I was just kind of getting a little too cocky and confident, thinking that I was fine. Let's move the artillery screen up a little bit and take out this position here. Cool. So our position is cleared out. We're gonna move up our tanks and our tiger is 1 guy down. So, speaking of that, I talked about what happens when you lose a crew. I'm gonna press E to show you. You notice in the bottom right, actually, yeah, you can see it. My camera's on the way. It says 80% efficient. That's because they're down 1 crew member. I can choose to take an infantry from the squad here and just have it load up. It won't give them a massive increase in efficiency, but at least brings it up a little bit. Perfect. Alright, we're doing pretty good so far. So we're very close to clearing out the second position. We're also going to probably have to move up our guns. We might as well do that now. So when you start hitting the 3 to 4 capture point zone, I'll call it, you're going to start running into trouble with ammo. You might need to start bringing more supply trucks. Ooh, whatever just fired, that's a hell of a shot. Here comes the micromanagement. For some reason, none of my tanks are firing on this one stupid little tank over here, so I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. I don't understand what's happening right now. Now he's firing. Took a little bit of time there. This is where your micromanagement is going to come into play again. I talked about this. Sometimes you're going to have to keep an eye, and something will be in range, your tanks won't fire, your infantry won't fire. It is a weird kind of glitch involved with that. For some reason, that's out of range. Sniper up. Guy over there too, so I'm gonna let's do this. We're gonna bring up our truck. This is banana. This little tank just took a tiger shot to the face and is still going. Alright, cool. Wow, that was actually kind of impressive that thing survived. So we do have a medium tank coming into play here. The way you can also tell is you notice how the symbol for it is 2 triangles. That's usually like medium, 3 is going to be heavy. As you can see for the tiger tank on the map, you can see it there. So look, these turrets are not even facing the right way. I'm pressing E, and I'm rotating the turret around, because otherwise, to be honest, this tiger wouldn't even lock on and fire. Let's see if I can actually get this guy. Let's go ahead. Let's see if I can range him here. All 3 tanks to engage. So that is something we're going to have to deal with, definitely. I'm going to bring up my artillery just a little bit more. Just to get it within range, and I'm also going to bring up this infantry squad. Now I do have a call sign unlocked, as you can probably tell right now, ready to go. I am not going to bother with it. Where's this infantry dude? No, he's outside. Alright, let's get this, because I'm going to click on my gun and rotate it and get it into position. We're going to want to take this out. This is actually a pretty decent threat, even to a Tiger tank, and definitely the Panzer V. It'll be a problem. So one thing to note with these artillery guns is they can take a really, really long time to rotate. So if you have something coming that needs to be addressed quickly and you're praying it's going to happen and it's in the wrong position, you're going to be in trouble. You might luck out though, and he'll just go over to the other position. Bring his Panzer V up, I think. Perfect. Alright. Let's see if we can start having an auto attack. Anytime now, artillery. Anytime. So with the range of these guns, as you can tell, it's perfect. You know, I want to keep an eye on this kind of stuff, and these are the things I want to knock out before they get time to get nestled into position, or they get time to, you know, set up and attack my units. So, this is something I want to really concentrate on and make sure I'm clearing out properly. From here, a good strategy on this map, I'd probably say, is I'm just going to stay in this position. I'm not going to move up. I'm not going to do anything weird. I'm going to sit here, hang tight, and just continue to bombard and soften up the enemy position that I want to capture. And then eventually, when this is pretty cleared out, I'm going to move in, and I'm going to do the same strategy. Take your tanks, screen forward slowly in groups, if you have groups. Hopefully you do by now. If you have them grouped together, there's less of a chance that they're going to get knocked out, especially by infantry and stuff, because they're going to be able to engage them at the same time. Let's see, so I already cleared that gun out. So priorities for clearing out positions, I think I just mentioned it already. Go for machine gun nests, which you can tell is the V symbol, anti-tank guns, things like that. Infantry who have anti-tank guns is a big one. You can tell if they have anti-tank guns by that's a grenade launcher actually. You'll see like a gun symbol above their head. I don't think flamethrower actually notates that, which is kind of annoying. But let's see if I can find a guy who has an anti-tank rifle. Oh, these two guys just lurking in the woods. Yeah. To your Tigers and your heavier tanks, especially on the Soviet side as well, infantry that have anti-tank rifles are going to be less of a threat. Panzerschrecks or rocket launchers are always a threat. Always. 100% threat. Don't let them get a shot off at you. But the anti-tank rifles, for the most part, they're going to bounce off. It's not going to be a problem. That's a strange line of infantry. So this guy actually is an anti-tank rifleman. He does not have a notation above his head, which is kind of strange. I don't know, maybe you have to get close to them or something. I'm not really sure why I wouldn't notate it. And, as I had said, always be paying attention. I have these two guys lurking up pretty close to my position, so I want to definitely deal with them. So I'm going to send this infantry squad to clear them out. I like to also keep reserves behind the line. So for example, this infantry squad I had back by the artillery, just in case. Sometimes movement gets really weird with the AI, and I think they actually unintentionally will move forces forward and kind of get into your zone, I guess you can call it. So, alright. Let's see. I don't know what that infantry squad's going to do, but we're going to put ours over here. Also, sometimes when you fire artillery into a position, it'll force the AI to move their infantry out. So this infantry just left the defensive position, essentially, to try to engage us. So this is a threat, not really to a Tiger, but it can kind of be if a Tiger is not facing the proper position to fire on it. That's in range. See if I can get both my Panzer 5s, by the way, mid-game, kind of like a T-34, a normal T-34, not a T-5 version, or the other one. They're okay. They're good. You know, pretty solid, but you know, they're definitely more prone to get knocked out by weirder things, like, you know, a lucky shot from a mortar and things like that. Okay, so let's compare. So this is something that I find is extremely annoying. One thing to also note with your heavier tanks, their turrets take a super long time to rotate, which means that they can get caught in really awkward positions very fast. So their turret, like this guy right here, he's insisting to engage this enemy that's way off to the left, where his greatest threat is going to be this tank right here. So, what we got here? The T-28. This is technically a heavy Russian tank, but not a really great one. We're almost about ready to go in and attack this position and clear it out. So I'm going to take this Panzer 5 and keep it out. And what do we got here? So the AI is bringing in flak guns, that's interesting, or anti-air weaponry. Those can be a serious threat to your tanks and infantry, especially the heavier ones. If it's the Germans, for example, and it's a flak 88, yeah, you need to knock that damn thing out really fast. It'll range you by a long shot. If it gets a lucky shot off, you're in a lot of trouble. So I am going to bring up some infantry in support of our attack here. forward. Again, I'm always paying attention, I'm always cognizant of what's being called in by the enemy. I want to make sure I don't get surprised. The unfortunate thing is, as you know, we're playing with no fog of war. So, when you play with fog of war, you really won't know what's coming in. You'll have no clue whatsoever. So that can make it really interesting. Something you have to pay attention to and make sure you get caught by surprise. I am gonna actually send them up ahead. We got a good artillery screening going on right now where it's keeping everyone's head down. So let's keep hitting this position back here. I'm gonna roll my Tiger up, roll my Panther 5 up, and I'm gonna roll my other Tiger up too. And probably a good time to see if I can engage our friend over here. I can, he's within range. Perfect. Just because I told the artillery to fire on it, remember obviously it's not the smartest thing in the world, it might not actually do that. Machine gun crew. Well, the only threat there really is going to be our infantry. They're in the trench. They have these awesome tanks just screening away. Don't think our artillery's even been firing. Let's try that again. There we go. That was nice. Perfect. Maybe now we'll have them just concentrate on this machine gun just for laps. Just keep an eye on stuff like this. Mass groups of infantry will be they could be a serious danger to your tanks. If they get around your tanks, they have Molotov cocktails, bundled grenades, flamethrower, as you saw with that one Tiger tank. If that was a lighter tank, or like a medium, like my Panzer 5, that tank would have been dead. From that flamethrower just consistently baking the guys inside. So we're about to win. Let's wrap it up. Be done. And time now. Cool. So, you saw a couple of, I'd say a little bit more advanced tactics to work on and stuff. As you get better and better at this game, one of the next things you're going to be concentrating on is probably your late game strategies. The really big difference, and I am going to make a smaller video just to kind of cover this topic a little bit for you guys. It's going to be much shorter than this one here, but the real big difference is going to be continuing to advance your research tree, continuing to keep an eye on your resources, and learning a play style. What do you like to do? Do you like a lot of tanks? Cool. Again, you always need infantry, but there's nothing wrong with bringing in more tanks. I mean, I brought in, what, four tanks? Technically, I guess you could say 5 to count the car. Nothing wrong with that. But you gotta have infantry too, for sure. You always want to advance with having your tanks screen forward, and then your infantry. Now, I'm sure some people will say, no, that's wrong. Traditional tactics, we know. You would probably never send your tanks forward without the infantry. Instead, you'd send the infantry forward to screen to clear any threats. In this game, it doesn't work that great. If I sent my infantry first, I would have been in this battle for another 30 plus minutes, and I probably wouldn't have they all would have been wiped out probably, would have been the actual result if I did that. So, just something to keep in mind. So again, I got 6 research points here, so let's see what we can do here. Can't do next command and call in stage 5, and I can't afford large defenses either. Kind of unfortunate. So I could choose to save up, don't spend them, and see what I can do from there. But in this case, I think it's time to probably upgrade our artillery to the next stage. So I'm hoping this video helps you guys, and if it does, please let me know this is useful. If there's any topics you want me to cover other than this stuff as well, I'm open to it. And again, our next video is going to be more on the advanced tactics side of things and moving into your late game play. So hopefully this helps, and I will see you guys later. Take it easy.